Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. Hello, Doug Lawrence, star of our show. How are you today?
Hello, I think I'm doing okay.
Well, you know, our show today is stories of hope, inspiration, and overcoming adversity. And I've said this before, but this yellow background just makes me feel so joyous, so happy. I feel like I'm standing taller. And the evolution of the caterpillar into the butterfly means there is hope for change. So you work with people all over the world in your role as a mentor. Can you share a little bit about this? Because you're bringing hope and inspiration to people who might not have it otherwise.
True. Yeah. And I do work with people basically all over the world. I think I mentioned in the previous show that I was just recently matched with a young lady in the Caribbean as part of the Richard Branson's program. So I'm going to be working with her. We've had one conversation already. We have another one scheduled for this coming Friday and so part of it is just going through that. So I do work with people. So in that particular situation, that's me working with an entrepreneur to help them move their business forward and do all the good things to be successful as a young entrepreneur. But I also, I do leadership mentoring. So I work with organizations where I may mentor some of the leadership team in order to help them obviously, to create or build that culture of positivity and engagement and all of those good things that we all hope that the organization that we're going to work with aspires to do much the same sort of thing. So, and probably, in line with our hope and inspiration. Part of our title for the show around that is the people that I work with have some level of hope, and that's why they reach out to me as a mentor or to people as coaches or in any of those functions. But they may have seen something inside themselves that gives them hope that they're going to be able to do different things, better things, and make a difference in the world. And they need that inspiration to be able to, move forward despite all the adversity that they're going to be dealing with. And, when we take a look at what's taking place today globally, there are lots of things that, from a adversity perspective that we need to be mindful of and figure out strategies to navigate around or through.
Yes, there's every day something in the news somewhere that just is cause for a lot of hope, a lot of forgiveness, a lot of grace. Something I'd like to have us discuss is when I know in the past, decades ago, when I was going to therapy for various things, there's a time limit on the appointment. The appointment's 50 minutes, let's say. And I found this now as a coach when people are coming to me, there's that time limit. And as the clients, we start to get aware of the fact that the session's coming to an end. And yet we still have so much more that we need to share. And that person is almost like the epitome of hope, that this person is going to take me to the promised land, from being in pain to being filled with joy. And I don't want the session to end. And once it ends, there's that fear, that feeling of, oh, now what? Now I'm left on my own, and hope is there, but it's leaving. It won't be back till next week. How do we manage those kind of expectations? Because hope typically is something that is going to carry us through a journey. It's not going to be instantaneous, in my experience. What are your thoughts, Doug?
That's actually a good topic, because we get into, and part of this is, kind of exploring a business model and stuff like that. But for me, I made a shift. I made a switch because I was seeing what was taking place with the people that I was spending time with in a mentoring relationship. And what I saw was that an hour was never long enough. And sometimes, an hour and a half wasn't long enough. And I was billing for my time. So I was billing by the hour. And I went, these people are crying for help. I'm going to change the wording. And I did. I went from, you're going to pay $500 an hour per se versus $500 per session. And there's no time frame that's associated with what is a session. And so I've gone down that path, and people say, okay, so are you like everybody else where, you're watching your watch or things like that. And when the magic hour hits, it's okay, that's good for today. Let's get together again another day. And what I've done to combat that is what I also tell them, and I did that with this young lady in the Caribbean, was I said, we'll set up regularly scheduled time frames. And, I will say, for sake of argument, let's just say that we're going to chat for an hour, but if we go over, it's not a big deal. And if you need to reach out to me in between the scheduled sessions, then please feel free to do so. Because I don't, like I said, and one of my mantras is, I'll never leave you on the island by yourself. And I carried that through in the conversation with her, was that I wanted her to understand that it's kind of like, I recently read an article that was written and published, and it was called Anytime Mentoring. And basically what it was describing was that the mentoring of the future is one that it's anytime mentoring. So whenever there's a need, there will be a mentor that will be able to work with a person to help them navigate through all of that all the stuff that they need to get through. But I even get to the point where I sometimes don't wear a watch, or I flip it so I can't see what time it actually is, because I don't want it to become where the person I'm mentoring sees me looking at my watch and goes, we must be getting close to the end of the magic hour. And I need to get all this stuff, like you had mentioned, I need to get all this stuff out on the table before he pulls the plug and says, that's it for today, because then what am I going to do? So yeah, it means that from a give and take perspective, that you maybe end up giving more than what you may like, but we have to think about, when we're here to be of service to others, we need to take that into account.
That's so compassionate of you. It really is. Would you say that you schedule certain days that are specifically for mentoring, because you wouldn't be able to really plan anything if you don't know how long the sessions are going to take?
I don't really schedule. I'm moving more and more towards that, where I'm going to start to allocate so many days out of the week for mentoring sessions and stuff like that. So like when I take a look at this week, so we do the two shows on Tuesday. So Tuesday I basically have I don't schedule any sessions or anything there. And then I get Mondays are kind of, let's ease into this and let's not dive in too quickly, and we'll get Monday started and feeds into Tuesday. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it's usually it's a full slate. But what I find that's also interesting is that I'm being engaged to be part of workshops and men's groups and all sorts of different locally here. So the awareness of what I do and all of that is now starting to, just it's all stuff that I'm doing to help others out. So it's not a huge, it's not a revenue generator by any stretch. And, so it's a matter of just being able to be of service to others is kind of the most important thing.
And I really appreciate what you're doing. Our topic today is humanity's need for hope. So I'd like us to just take a step back when we think about all the things going on in the world. Depending on what country you're in, it might be the same types of things over and over again. We have a lot of school shootings here, senseless shootings, and there's really no answer for it other than, well, we're not going into, that's another show. Sorry. Take a step back, it's another show. So how can we as humanity have hope when so many bad things are happening in the world? Sometimes people just say, this isn't a place I want to live anymore, or I just can't take all the violence on television. How can we still stay positive and believe that there is hope, there is a chance, there is an opportunity that this is temporary and will change?
Well, and that's a good question, because one of the things that I like to suggest to people is look at it from the aspect of what is it that I can change and what are the things I can't change, and then start to figure out if that's the case. Then when I look at things that I can change, what are the steps I need to go through? Who do I have to involve, and all of those things? And then you had mentioned the shootings and all of that. Can I change that? Possibly. Is it something I can do? Yes. Is it on my list of things that I need to personally be looking at? Maybe not. But if somebody comes to me and asks me, would I be willing to help out in creating or identifying a solution to a problem, I'm probably going to jump at it, especially if I know that it's going to make the world a better place to live, and I'm going to have the opportunity to influence others to get them to want to be more part of the solution rather than being part of the problem.
Yeah, I love that you just shared, if called upon, you will rise to the occasion to help work on a solution. And I think if more of us did that, it would be a different scenario. I think also, just something I want to share personally, I have ulcerative colitis and I've had it, I think 33 years. And I would say that is the worst pain I have ever known in my life, where you just think, I don't even know how I'm going to make it through this. But what I'll say to myself, because we're talking about hope, is I'll say to myself, based on experience, this will come to an end. I will go into remission. I'll get sick again, but I will go into remission. How can I find the way to get there? And so there's that hope. There's never, they're going to have a cure, and in my lifetime, I'm not going to have to deal with this. I have to deal with it. This is what's on my plate. How can I get to the other side where this is temporary? And I think if we can, it might seem crazy when you think about some of the things going on in the world, but where there's war, then there's peace. So if everything is temporary except for death and taxes, how can we find the hope and carry it through to inspire others?
We need to ask the question, when I get to that place that feeding off of the example that you gave. So when you get through that stage of having to deal with all the pain and the suffering and all of that, and you get to that, then what are we going to do with the time that we have at that point? So, is it, and I want us to be able to look at it from the aspect of what, kind of what's in it for me in a roundabout way, and what's in it for others. So it's a matter of, because how I usually look at some of those things is that, say health example, and I'll use myself as an example. My 5-year, 50,000 mile powertrain warranty on my body's just about running out. And so what am I going to do to prolong that? So what are some of the things that I can do that's going to shed or provide some hope? And the idea behind the hope is that maybe I'm going to live longer than what I am projecting at this particular stage. And I periodically will share with our listening and viewing audience my use of a medium from time to time. And, the medium at one time point had told me that I had 6 more books I had to write. So I'm thinking, okay, so 6 more books. That could be 6 years. Oh, okay, well, we're good to go for 6 more years. And, so it's wrapping something around it that we understand, which is defining it by a time commitment. And also then taking the step back and saying, if I do that, who's going to be impacted by that? So number one, me, because I'm going to be operating without a 5-year, 50,000 mile powertrain warranty in my hand. So it can be any day, any time. Things could change, but, and then, so how does it impact me? But how does it impact those in my immediate inner circle? And then outside of that, how does it impact the people that I'm here to serve, to basically be a servant for them, to help them become the best that they can be in the limited time that we may have together.
And again, thank you for just always being so honest about what you're going through. And I think it just makes you so relatable and so likable, and that people want to be able to share with you. We had a show earlier today, the Business Talk Show, and we had a financial advisor on, and we were talking about managing our money. And we were talking about imposter syndrome when it comes to money. And the reason I bring it up is our title of our show today is Humanity's Need for Hope and What Inspires Us to Feel This Way. It's not humanity's need for money and what drives us to get it. And I feel like when we think about hope and we think about money, they don't really come together. Hope is so much bigger, and I don't want to label it as more important, but the point is we spend a lot of our life chasing the money, chasing the things. And when it comes down to it and our health starts to fail, we start questioning, how long do I have? What else do I want to accomplish? It's not, I need stacks of cash. Because the cash, I don't care how much cash you have, you can't buy a health diagnosis. Whatever it is you're looking for, the money is not going to solve the problem, but hope can. That commitment to believing that there's something bigger out there, that I'm here for a reason, that I'm here for a purpose, not how many zeros are in your bank account. But yet we spend so much time on that. Why is that, Doug? And we get to be a certain age, it's not about that anymore. It's about, what is my purpose and how can I help serve others?
And I think in our younger years that, that's how society sometimes measures success, is by how many zeros you have in the bank account. And I know that for me, one of my value propositions is that I tell people, certainly individuals, that if money is what stands between you and I working together, let's take money off the table, and let's move forward. And if as long as I'm able to make enough money to put a roof over my head and, you know, food on the table, that's all. From a money perspective, that's all that I really need. And I guess probably gas in my vehicle, that's a whole nother story. So we'll save that one. But it's the aspect of, you know, if the difference between you and I having a successful mentoring session, if you go, well, I can't afford to pay your per session rate, I can't do it, then, you know, let's take it off the table for now, and we'll circle back and revisit it later once, you know, number one, you get a sense or a feeling of how this is going to work for you, because it may not. And number two is that as time goes on and you start to see successes, and we have to define what that looks like. But as you start to see successes, with that's going to come the revenue, and with the revenue is going to come, I think I need to provide Doug with some money, at least if nothing else, to show that I'm appreciative of what he's been doing for me and his commitment to, you know, if money's what stands between us being successful, then let's take it off the table.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely beautiful. And I feel similarly when it comes to money. I believe I just had this conversation with somebody the other day, and they said, you know, you don't charge enough for your services. You're really undervaluing yourself. And I said, I don't know, maybe that's true, but I want to be able to have people have an opportunity to share what they're going through. And when you have a price point that's much higher, you're eliminating a large percentage of the population. And I feel that my reason for being is to give people a place to share their story. But yet there are, again, looking at hope and money, there are people whose entire vision is about the dollar. How much are you earning? And to me, that is in direct conflict with being of service. I don't know, because if you think about certain churches, you know, the television churches, for example, and the money's just pouring in. They have a huge marketing team. And then you think about your little local church or your local synagogue, and it's, you know, the pastor, or the reverend. Where does that line get crossed, or crossed off even, when you say, for me to give hope, for me to be inspirational, my focus is not on the dollar?
You know, I think it comes back to humanity's need is for hope. And all we have to do is take that step back and sort of see, if we were to take hope out of the picture. So basically look at things from the aspect of, this is the way it is. And, you know, you're not in a position or a place to be able to change any of the outcomes. So you need to be able to just accept it is what it is. And the old adage of, you know, kind of, and I don't like using this one, but it's, you know, somebody says, suck it up, buttercup, and just get on with it. You know, that doesn't really have a place in this. And so if we take hope out of the picture, then what do we have? And we really don't have a lot of other things to do that are going to change the world to make it a better place than what it is today. It's, you know, it's good that we are inspired to be able to want to do things and to be able to move things forward and to be the best that we can be and to make the world a better place to be. But if we don't have the hope to be able to do that, we don't have the drive in order for us to be able to get to that place that we need to get to.
Absolutely true. I agree. I remember, Doug, when I was in my corporate career, I had a final interview, one of many in a row, with a senior level executive. And it was a breakfast meeting, actually. And the person looked to me and said, "This is an important question. I want you to think about it before you answer. Would you say that you're an optimist, or you're a pessimist, or you're a realist?" And I said, "Oh, I'm absolutely an optimist." And he said, "Well, can you expand?" And I said, "Because I really believe that there is good in everyone, and maybe there just needs to be some work to get down to where that good is. Maybe it's been blocked up with walls." And he said to me, and I'll never forget it, he said, "That's a shame, because we're looking for people who are realists." And of course, I ended up getting the job, and I had a further conversation with him about it later. And I said, "What did you really mean about that?" And he said, "We don't do business based on what could be or what we're hoping for. We base business on the bottom line, on the revenue, on the dollar." And while that's true, I truly believe that the drive of the business has to be of service. Now, maybe that means I'll go downhill. I don't know. But what would you say? What are your thoughts on that, Doug?
I'm I've always said to people that you can always tell, at least from my perspective, you can always tell the organizations that are the successful ones, and they are the ones that they take care of their people. They build relationships with the people that they work with. So, as an example, I remember I had a conversation with, he worked in government. He was in the senior executive level. And so one day we met for coffee. I remember we were sitting on a picnic bench in downtown Regina. And he said, what will it take for me to be successful in this job that I'm newly promoted into? And I said, to build relationships with the people that work with you. And I said, what that means for you as a leader is every morning you grab yourself a coffee and you walk around all the areas where you have people that work with you and you build relationships. You ask questions. It can be as simple as, that Sally, who works with you, that she's got a young son named Bob, and Bob plays hockey, and Bob played hockey last night. So you walk up to her, with your coffee in hand, and you say, "Geez, I think I recall Bob played hockey last night. How did he do? Did he get any goals?" And she'll go on, proud mom that she is, she'd go on and tell the story. And that 5 or 10 minute interval that you took, probably less than 10, 5 minute interval that you took to build that relationship, means you now have a engaged employee that's going to help your organization be the best that it can be. And you need to do that for, you can't spend your whole day doing that, but you need to take the opportunities when they present themselves and build those relationships. I was at a time in my tenure in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police where I didn't do that until I had that epiphany or that light bulb, and I went, now I understand why people run and hide under their desk when I enter the workspace. It was because I hadn't built a relationship with any of them. And the only time they saw me was when someone was about to get a chewing out for something they did or didn't do.
How did you feel when you acknowledged that that's what people had been thinking or feeling?
I was destroyed, to be honest, because that wasn't me. I was very much a people person. And so as I made the shift, and it got to the point then where I used to call it the Hudson Bay revolving door, where people would come into my office, sit down and say, I've got a problem. And I would just ask a few questions and they'd figure it out on their own. And away they'd go, and they'd go, oh gosh, guy's magic. I don't know how he does it, but I come to him with a problem and I solve it, and away I go. And what do we need him for? So, it was just, once I realized the value of the people that I had working with me, that it was so much easier. Life became so much easier, even to the point where I used to write documentation or correspondence for my boss. And so I would get one of my staff members who worked with me to start it off and start writing, and then I would make my changes and then send it to the boss with my instructions to him, where I don't want to see it coming back. So, because you're going to change it anyhow, you go ahead and change it, and that's the final version. But do us all a favor and send it back so we can learn how to write for you or with you, and do it that way. So it was that whole time frame was quite the learning experience.
And yet, Doug, what I find so interesting is your role as a Royal Mounted Police officer, that to me just connotes fear, impressive power, authority, as opposed to sweet, nice, compassionate understanding. What are your thoughts about people who are in positions like that, even in government, for example, or the leader of a corporation, and they've decided that my office is off limits, do not come here, the door is closed, you got to go through Susie, Billy, and Bobby in order to even get to have a phone call with me? People are running organizations like that. People are doing their job like that, and their whole thing, that the whole what am I trying to say? They're facilitating an environment of fear.
Yeah. Yeah. And fear and toxicity. And usually it's a combination of the two, but it just doesn't do, the organization itself could be so much more productive if we spend the time nurturing and growing those that work with us, versus, versus, ending up with not doing that. And I think of when I retired from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, that some of the people that were left behind didn't know how they were going to survive, and found it to be extremely diminishing their value to the organization, because they had no one left that was their supporter, we'll go with their supporter, that they were going to be on their own. And my boss, who was their boss, was very toxic, very much a harassing sort of an individual. And it actually took someone leaving the organization before the lights came on and people went, this isn't a good situation, or we need to deal with it. And I have to give them credit. They did, move that individual from being in a position of authority to one where he was basically managing himself, and that was all.
And I'm also wondering, when people are in positions like that and they are leading through intimidation or fear, is it because potentially they have a fear of failure, a fear of rejection, and the way that they overcome this is by intimidating others?
Exactly. And we see that more and more often. And you even, you'll see that where some people have a tendency to be just that much more aggressive. And usually that's a good indicator that here's somebody who is struggling. So they're using that as a mask to hide the insecurities that they have, and whether they're insecurities from when they were growing up as a young child, versus, or something that the insecurities came as a result of, because I think of when I was back in government in a leadership position, and I made a business decision, and I got my staff engaged to start doing it. And my boss, who was, definitely quite a ways up the food chain compared to me, literally ripped the strip off me, but he did it by sending an email out. And I used to jokingly say, yeah, sent an email out to everybody, including the King of England. And so what did that do for me? That had me basically become an employee who waited to be told what you wanted done. Didn't take the initiative, didn't do anything like that, but just sort of became somebody who procrastinated because no sense me making a decision because it was probably not the right one anyhow. And what was interesting was the decision that I had made, he ended up taking it and modifying it very, very slightly and having it implemented. So what did we gain from that? Not a lot.
Yeah, it's very true. And we're talking about hope today. And I think it's important that we think of hope not just in the big overall, but in the day to day. And when we do something to literally take away someone's hope, we're accountable for that. And we have to address that. We have to deal with it. Sometimes we might have to deal with it for the rest of our lives because by taking someone's hope away, it could cost them their lives in some cases. Sometimes people are holding on to something desperately, and then by taking it away, they don't really see any reason to continue on.
No, that's exactly true. And I think, for our listening and viewing audience today, tomorrow when you go to get up and you get out of bed, and I want you to take a look in the mirror and I want you to see that marvelous and wonderful person that stands before you, and that inside each and every one of us are the opportunities, the hope that we need to be able to move forward. And what you need to do is you need to be your own inspiration so that you can feed off of that inspiration and become the person that you want to be. So I want you to make sure that you do that, and that you relish the hope that comes from doing something like that for yourself. Always, always make sure that you take care of number one, and that's yourself, and that you become the inspiration that you need in order to be able to move forward.
Yes, and I'd like to add to that also that while you're looking at yourself and you're setting yourself up to win, that others may not be cheering you on, because sometimes people want us to fail because they don't want to make changes themselves. So don't let that hold you back. Keep going and find your own hope. And again, as I said, unless it's certain situations that are pretty final, there's another opportunity for hope if you let it in your heart. Doug, you shared on our last show about not leaving any person stranded on an island, or not leaving them out there by themselves. Tell us a little bit more about this and how you're working with people.
Well, the big thing is that's sort of one of my mantras, is that I'll never leave you on the island by yourself. So, whether it's money or anything, if anything gets in the way of you moving forward to spend some time with me, let's take that off the table and be able to move forward. And you can get a hold of me through my website at www.talentc.ca. And you can also, if you're comfortable in so doing, you can also send me an email at doug.lawrence@talentc.ca. And I'll get back to you, and we can have a conversation, if nothing else, to talk about how we may or may not spend some time together and what that looks like, and go from there.
Thank you so much, Doug. And I'll just add, Doug's here for a reason. He could be doing a lot of other things. He's here to help. He's here to add value. Please do reach out to him. At a minimum, go over to LinkedIn and connect with him. Send him an email. Go to his website. Tell us about your book, You're Not Alone.
So You're Not Alone was written with the idea in mind of mentoring being part of the support structure for mental health, grief, mental well-being, all of those things. And excuse me, it became, it's an Amazon #1 bestseller in North America and the UK. And like we mentioned earlier, I'm also an international best-selling author as a result of the success of that particular book. And I have one that's with the publisher now, The Silent Pandemic, which is going to speak to the aspect of grief and mental health, mental well-being, and cancer as one of the, if not the leading cause of death in the world today. And so I've kind of wove all that stuff into this book that I'm very excited to go to press with when the time is right.
Congratulations, Doug. That's fantastic. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Doug and I are going to be signing off for now. We'll be back next week, so please do reach out. Also, you can find our shows on our YouTube channel, which is USA Global TV and Radio. If you'd like to be a guest, we'd love to have you, right? Just go over to our website, usaglobaltvandradio.com. Book your session. All right. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, everyone, for watching, listening. We really appreciate it. We will see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.